Okay, so imagine this situation. You've got to come up with great content, you've got no time, barely any budget, and no clue what would actually hold people's attention. Whether you're a brand owner, art director, filmmaker, content creator, this one's for you. For those new here, I am Noor Niaz, and I've directed commercials for Samsung, Coca-Cola, Red Bull, and many other brands over the past 10 years. In this video, you will learn 5 powerful tactics to create unique, engaging, and memorable content that stands out in the age of AI-generated copy-paste slop. Tactic number 1, context switching, or what I like to call a format shakeup. Basically, every brand has its box. Mass market consumer brands try to be seen as accessible, diverse, like Colgate, for example. White teeth, smiling families. In the luxury segment, it's usually these upscale brands like Mercedes-Benz, performance, business, luxury. Cartier is known for timeless elegance, craftsmanship, exclusivity. So those are the boxes they operate within. Now the trick is to take that box and throw it into a completely different room. You take something familiar and you place it where it doesn't belong. And when the viewer watches that, they wake up. It's like, wait, what? Like, why is this here? Instant curiosity. Like that chicken ad Mercedes did a while back. It has nothing to do with showing a car or the people who usually drive one, but it's so out of the genre and atypical that it sticks with you and it is still cool to watch. Or that Stanley Cup Socials ad where they decided to forego the typical outdoor camping imagery and set up this made-up situation where their steel tumbler survives a car fire and they made it look like it's real. The entire car is burnt down, but the cup is sitting there, ice still inside. Another example is the Heinz and Kate Spade commercial from last year. So they took a brand that everyone recognizes in one category, ketchup, and then they took another brand we expect in a completely different category, nice handbags and fashion accessories. It's so unexpected and absurd that it works. That is exactly the kind of throwing the box in a different room move I am talking about here. So you can also use this by thinking of all the least likely places, use cases, or contexts where your product could appear. Or if you're a personal brand, also think of what would be the most unexpected setting I could deliver my content from. So you take something familiar, add something unfamiliar, and you get cognitive dissonance, which then will translate into attention. So remember, you're not just showing your product or its benefits, but rather creating entertainment and curiosity, and then your brand just happens to be there. And people love that tension. Number 2, aesthetic as story. This one's huge. We're always told to follow the 3-act structure or Dan Harmon's story circle, setup, conflict resolution, and that has its time and place for sure, especially in the movies. But in most commercial circumstances, and especially social media content, that structure feels very theatrical. And most brands don't want theatrical scripts. Think of that A Million d'Or and North Face collab that happened not long ago. During the warm-up to the launch, they dropped a few content pieces, one of which was this full-blown road movie. It's literally a dude driving a truck from San Francisco to New York and delivering boxes. And there is no traditional story or conflict or hero's journey or anything like that. Just pure aesthetic and world building that shows that Americana. You're watching it like, where is this all going? And yet you can't stop watching for its captivating aesthetic and you want to live it with the character. So the aesthetic is the story here, and it feels handmade, and it feels like someone crafted it, especially in the mountain of AI sludge nowadays with copy-paste content. People crave that human touch again today. And if you can make something that looks handmade, as in raw, imperfect, and tactile, that becomes your unique differentiator. Like there's this other brand, Orezi, they make 24 karat gold plated toothbrushes and gold infused toothpaste and other high-end oral care products. Totally unnecessary in theory, but in practice, their visuals make you want to indulge in it and experience this. And a lot of it has nothing to do with the product. If you go on their website or socials, they show beautiful people in nightclubs, luxury retreats. It doesn't even make sense, but it builds the world the viewer is or wants to be a part of. It sets the vibe and it shows taste. And that is aesthetic storytelling. All right, number 3, graphic design. And I swear this one's underrated. People feel bad design even when they don't understand it or they're not graphic designers themselves. We do it on a subconscious level because of conditioning and what we saw when we were kids from advertisers growing up in pop culture and established media. So like fonts, spacing, and alignment, most of the people are not graphic designers, but we read these messages that are encrypted in graphic design. You use the wrong typeface and suddenly your brand feels off and your product may come across as cheap even if it's not. So like fonts have personalities. Times New Roman feels premium. Comic Sans feels like a meme. And Helvetica feels modern and sleek, and that's why Apple uses it. Every design choice communicates something. Where your text sits, how far it's spaced, whether it's centered or not. Even a single sentence can read differently just because of its layout. I think propaganda posters during World War really figured it out first and squeezed all of the utility out of it, and then it was magazines and published media, hence why I love these magazines and design books, graphic design books like this so much, and I keep all of them around my office here. Now, the perks of making video content is that your graphic design doesn't need to be static. It can be animated and dynamic to support the message. And if you haven't watched it, I really recommend the Netflix documentary series called Abstract, especially the episode with the graphic designer and the illustrator Paula Scher, who is probably the most influential graphic designer in the world today. Because it's so cool to see her approach moving images stripped down to bare bones and basic shapes and tell a story through them. And if you're doing this solo and don't have a designer, Motion VFX is a really great tool to assist you with anything graphic. It has things like text animations and motion graphic presets, like the M Keynote pack I'm using in this particular video. Before, making this stuff by hand was hard and took forever. Now I just drag, drop, tweak a little bit, and I'm done. It looks really professional, but only takes like 5 minutes. They have transitions, titles, LUTs, and whatever else you may need to make your content look like it costs a lot of money. It works on Mac or PC, DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut, and Premiere. Right now they're running their biggest sale of the year. It's called the Final Price Cut. Up to 50% off everything plus 30% off with the code FINAL. I'll leave the link below, so go check them out. Moving on to tactic number 4, mixed media. This one's all about deliberately adding imperfection and stripping away that unnecessary polish and sterile look. If everything you make looks too clean, too polished, it starts feeling soulless, robotic, because it's against our very nature. We humans are naturally messy, smelly, and imperfect in every way imaginable. So your content can also mimic that and mix it up to create this layered emotional resonance. In practice, it can be as simple as just throwing in some iPhone photos on top of your big expensive camera footage, whatever you're shooting on, Alexa, Red, FX3, FX30. Cut in some footage from an old, beat up VHS camera. Use that old handycam from your uncle's attic. Mix film with digital, again, Red 8K footage with that 8mm film look. Or you can collaborate with an illustrator or animator to create that mix of 2D animation on top of your live action footage. Or you can go as far as ripping some paper, scanning it, scribbling something on top, and throwing it over your footage. Anything goes here, really. Sky is the limit. Take Apple's shot on iPhone, drawn on iPad campaign. Here's a brand famous for pristine product photography, but in this campaign, they layered real-life phone photography with hand-drawn illustrations, mixing formats to create that texture and human touch. And as a side note, I think that's your biggest advantage against AI content. It's that controlled chaos, right? Because with AI, you can't really control the fine details, and that is its biggest fundamental flaw. But again, I advise you to be careful here because there's this thin line between tasteful imperfection and cringe. Newbies and beginners often learn something and immediately overdo it when and when not needed. Like when it's used as a way to salvage an otherwise bad video, bad content, bad performance, hiding behind those paper cuts and those scanning details and that chaos. If you stack 20 different filters, 10 different fonts and textures in a single shot, and then it becomes unwatchable and distracting, really. So moderation and knowing when to and when not to is the key in building that taste. Again, developing that taste is you future-proofing against AI content. All right, number 5 is sound. And sound is half of the audiovisual experience, but most creators treat it as an afterthought. And you need to train yourself to think of sound not just as some background element, but think of it as narrative control when ideating for the shoot in pre-production already. Even pure sound design can build worlds. Imagine a woman with a shopping cart rushing through aisles. Now add the sound of a sports car. And suddenly you're not just showing what's happening, you're showing how it feels to her. That Bang & Olufsen film where a girl walks through the city, puts on her headphones, and suddenly she's in this flashback in her own memory That's sound pulling the story instead of just the visuals. That one's literally built around the sound perspective. Should also keep in mind that a lot of the brands have their own branded sounds. Like the Magnum ice cream has a branded sound of the bite.
Nothing cracks like Magnum.
Actually, I know this from way back when I directed a campaign for Magnum called Release the Beast. Our production team was instructed by the agency to use their branded sound. So obviously you need to utilize that and also create that familiarity and that ASMR experience with your own products, even if it's not a physical product. And even if you're a personal brand, you're a person, your voice is that asset. Like Morgan Freeman, for example, or like these days it would be Joe Rogan in the podcast world. A lot of people recognize their voice, and it's definitely a part of their media package as a whole. You hear them and immediately you know it's them. And that's how powerful audio identity can be. So record your voice and sounds well, and generally pay attention to sounds. Never leave them as an afterthought, because it's literally part of your brand DNA. So yeah, those are my 5: context switching, aesthetic as a story, graphic design, mixed media, and sound. It doesn't necessarily mean that all good content only utilize these, but I found this to be a toolbox. Whenever you have a message to convey, try to think of these tools and how you can use them to turn boring concepts into something really cool and layered. You can mix and match these, like format shakeup with mixed media, or aesthetic storytelling with great sound design and typography. And that is where I believe the best stuff happens, at the intersections. If you want to go deeper into creative direction, branding, or storytelling for filmmakers, subscribe and hit that like button. And also, if you pitch to your clients often, then check out our pitch deck design templates that have already helped hundreds of directors cut their pitch creation time in half. And I will see you in the next video. And I will see you in the next video. And I will see you in the next video.